etched across the curve of a jar, these words: I wonder where is all my relation, friendship to all and every nation. What instrument, I wonder, did he use to inscribe this poem in the pottery? Did he do it with a hunch in his back? Or did he straighten his arm, the subject shoulder to shoulder with his object to incise this verse? Dave the Potter lived in the first 3/4 of the 19th century just north of Edgefield, South Carolina. Enslaved, bartered, and leaned amongst a family of masters, Dave knew only a few years of life post-emancipation. But he effectively wrote himself into history by way of couplets etched onto the breadth of the jars that he made day in and day out. Dave could read, and Dave could write. Not all these jars were blessed with the inscription of verse, but most of them were prodigious in size and outstanding in quality for the pottery of the day. These jars, mostly used for storing food, were beautiful, are beautiful. Dave was a master potter. He was useful to his master. But between the turns of the wheel and the firings of the kiln, Dave stole the time to wonder, where is all my relation? Dave inhabited the social predicament of the slave. He suffered from what Orlando Patterson terms natal alienation, ripped from the memory of relations, ripped from relationality itself. He is the proverbial bastard of America's proprietary grammar. He stands afore and abreast the unnamed women who labored alongside him. He lives in the vestibular space where Hortense Spiller says kinship loses all meaning. And though the enslavement of the New Testament differs drastically from America's peculiar institution, there are some drastic similarities. Onesimus, the slave of Philemon, who was converted in the custody of Paul, suffered natal alienation. Of the scores of times we hear about slavery in the New Testament, he is perhaps the only enslaved person readily and clearly named. He ran away from Philemon because he had done wrong and wanted to escape punishment. We know naught of his blood relations. We only know from this letter, once used just to justify slaves returning to their masters, that Paul calls him son and christens him Philemon's brother and sends him back to his brother master, Onesimus, whose name means useful or profitable, apparently has to grow into his name. The one who was useless to you is now useful to me and you. I wonder what made Onesimus useful. Was it his conversion? Was it his Christianness? I wonder what makes a slave more or less likely to rebel. Is it their conversion? Is it their Christianness? These are the real debates that occupied the slaveholding class in the wake of uprising, rebellion, and revolt. Stono, South Carolina, 1739. Denmark Vesey, South Carolina, 1822. Nat Turner, Virginia, 1831. And in a world of cruciform fracture, On one axis, the deep swell of the Atlantic Ocean. On the other, the uneven parallel of the Mason-Dixon. There sat Dave the Potter, asking, I wonder, where is all my relation? Can you imagine Jesus telling Dave the Potter to hate his mother and his father, a mother and a father he may have never known? How would it have landed in the ears of Onesimus to hear Jesus say, you have to hate the brother whose voice you barely remember, the sister whose name you used to know, the children you may never have if you want to follow me? Jesus' command must mean something radically different to the dispossessed, to the margin of the margin, to the abject, the subaltern, the unthought object of the underbelly of society. What is the use of following Jesus? What is the use in what we gather here to do every Tuesday at 11 a.m.? What is the use of what we huddle over desks and squint at chalkboards and congregate in study sessions to ingest? What is the use of faith and of faithfulness in a world with fractures so deep they cross continents and generations? And here I'm reminded that though Dave the Potter was without family, he was not without memory. While some scholars posit justifiably that Dave was taught the pottery craft by his masters, Babatunde Lawal, in his art historical essay on Dave's work, reminds us that the semiotic traces in Dave's handwriting and aesthetic style bear resemblances to the pottery and the artwork and the cosmograms from Angola and Congo and Cross River, Nigeria. In other words, even if he learned the market-based craft from the enslavers, the craft gave birth to a memory that perhaps even Dave himself did not know that he carried. Lawal asserts that Dave's vessels function in rebellion against an inherently sinful status quo. I wonder what makes a member of a progressive community of inquiry and social engagement more or less likely to rebel against an inherently sinful status quo. Is it their conversion? Is it their Christianness? Could it be that there is a lesson to be learned from the Christianity of Dave and Onesimus, a Christianity that remembers? Maybe we have forgotten something. Could it be that, like the enslaved Africans who heard about a man who walked on water and calmed the raging sea and got up from the dead and set the captives free, could it be that Onesimus heard Paul talking about this Jesus in whom there's neither male nor female, Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, and he remembered himself into a future where he too could share in that liberty? Could it be that Dave the Potter heard one master or another talking about Jesus and Paul and Moses and David and Job and said, perhaps one day I'll see what they're talking about when they said that the wicked shall cease from troubling and the weary shall be at rest? And I just like to imagine the look on that slave owner's face who reached down in that jar that Dave had engraved with the words, I made this jar all of cross. If you don't repent, you will be lost. I wonder if in the end it was the dispossessed and the motherless and the forlorn and the fatherless who took up their crosses and followed Jesus because they had no other option. And the remarkable thing about Dave the Potter is not just the literacy and not just the poetry, but the fact that in large cursive letter, he signed his name, Dave, on the pots that he made. You see, it meant something that Dave signed his name. Historian Leonard Todd says that while he was doing something that in the eyes of the social order And even in the eyes of the law, he wasn't supposed to be doing. He made sure that we knew his name.
All right.
What is it that you're willing to sign your name to in the service of your Christianity? When the annals of time are unscrolled and some far-off soul digs into the archaeology of Wake Divinity and Winston-Salem and North Carolina, what will be the mark that said this community was converted? Not to a religion of the slave master, but to the religion of the chain breaker, the bad company keeper, the table turner, the Sabbath healer, the defier of all expectations. What will be the signature that says they followed the way maker, the miracle worker, the promise keeper? What will be the mark that says this was a people whose light found its meaning in darkness? What will be the sign for within the crevice of this fractured world that says that there was an earthen vessel here that was full of a treasure trove of God's goodness and mercy and righteousness? Yes, the weight is crushing. And yes, the forces of evil are parlaying for our very lives. And yes, the vaccination rollbacks have come, jeopardizing our most vulnerable. And yes, the factories full of migrant workers are being systematically raided. And yes, the bombs still rain down on Gaza. And yes, Ukraine is still ravaged. And yes, Sudan is an utter disaster. And yes, the west side of Winston-Salem is still scared to drive through the east side of Winston-Salem. So what's the use? What's the use? And even picking up a hunk of clay and saying, I'll shape between my hands a form of justice, reconciliation, and compassion. How, Dave, how can we turn to friendship when we ain't got no relation? And if I said I had the answers to these questions, I would stand here a liar. All I know is that questions like these sometimes can crush us into a million pieces. But then, thank you, Jesus, I remember what the Lord said to the prophet Jeremiah. Come, go down to the potter's house. I know you're trying to make it make sense. Just come, go down to the potter's house. I know you're fighting to make God's presence known in your community and in your hospital and in your nonprofit and in your classroom, but come, go down to the potter's house. I know you're standing at odds with family and friends who want to know why you would even go down to a school like Wake Forest University School of Divinity. Just come, go down to the potter's house. The potter, the one who writes poems out of chaos. The potter, the one who brings Adamah and Ma'im into relation in the form of clay. The potter, the one who sighs and breathes and sweats over the wheel of creation. Come, go down to the potter's house. And there you will hear how you can make it. Hear how God's kingdom will come. Hear how God's will be done. Hear how it won't be long before justice comes rolling like a mighty stream.
All right now.
Yes, the clay, the fragile clay, may fall apart in the master's hands. But, and I know some of us live on flowery beds of ease, and we've never experienced the echoes of natal alienation, but in case, and I know some of us may not understand how to access the God of the oppressed because we have lived so long, so far away from the life of the oppressed, but just in case. And I know some of us have more questions than we have answers about this call to be faithful in a fractured and fracturing world that has fractured us, but in case you have fallen. V. Michael McKay wrote it. By the wayside of life, dreams and visions shattered. Tremaine and Walter Hawkins sang it. You're all broken inside. You don't have to stay. This world don't have to stay in the shape that you're in because I checked the record. And slave or free, near or far, queer or straight, man or woman, cis or trans, the potter. Not only does the potter have the ability, but the potter has the desire to put us back together again. And I know it gets rough. I know you're weary and you're broken and you need mending. Just stop by the potter's house. Give the potter the pieces. Give the potter the questions. Give the potter the trepidation. Give the potter the stuff you just can't seem to understand. Give the potter the fragments of your broken life. My friends. Why? Because the potter wants to put you back together again.